if anybody has been watching the ongoing witch hunt for Marussia, which is pretty much the only thing that we hear from everyone who is still incredibly, they have their feelings hurt and they're still trying to relitigate November 2016 over and over again at the sake of destabilizing our great republic. Everybody's obviously been following one of these side stories, the latest with regards to Roger Stone. And we talked a little bit about this earlier because I had read the indictment and I was following all of this stuff. And I still maintain that I can be prevailed upon to care about this when others can show some care, some concern about the actual serious criminal conspiracy that took place with the Hillary campaign, with the Democrat Party, with Perkins Coie, with Christopher Steele, and with Fusion GPS, which hasn't registered under FARA, but really should, considering some of the other indictments that Mueller's office has brought out, and actually conspiring with the Kremlin to spy on American citizens simply because they were threatened about losing the White House in November of 2016. So, I mean, sure, if we can actually look at these actual serious, credible criminal actions here, I'm totally fine with looking at process charges over a witch hunt. Joining me right now, the man at the center of it all, who apparently also did a video about how one dresses when one goes to court, is Roger Stone. Roger, all this time, how are you?
Dana, I'm delighted to be with you again.
How are you doing? How are you holding up?
I'm doing fine. I mean, it's an extraordinary experience to be the target of this kind of police state raid when you consider that I have no previous criminal record. I am charged falsely with a series of nonviolent process crimes. Although I strongly support the Second Amendment, I do not own a firearm. There was no gun in my home. I do not have a valid passport. And, of course, the judge released me on a surety bond on my signature, showing the court didn't believe that I was a flight risk. So the government spent roughly $500,000 on an El Chapo-style raid on my home when they simply could have called my attorney, who they are well acquainted with, and I would have voluntarily turned myself in.
That was insane to watch, by the way, and it felt like the ridiculous way in which you were taken into custody was done to continue this story that you are this very dangerous, horrible person, and this was an optic that they had to continue as a form of life support for their refusal this entire time to simply state that the administration and everyone else is in the all clear.
Well, and the real point, I guess, is this was an attempt to poison the jury pool. In other words, by making me look like public enemy number one. I mean, they sent 12 men to kill and capture or kill bin Laden. They sent 29 armed FBI agents brandishing assault weapons and sidearms. They surrounded my home, helicopter overhead, 17 vehicles in the front yard, including 2 armored vehicles. Because my house backs onto a canal, 2 amphibious vehicles with armed frogmen, and they marched my 71-year-old wife, who's deaf, outside in a nightgown and bare feet at 5 o'clock, 5:50 in the morning. She's not even accused of any crime. It really is over the top. It's the kind of thing you'd expect in Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia or Fidel Castro's Cuba, but not here in the United States, you wouldn't think.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that. And that was incredibly scary to see, but not beyond the realm of expectation, considering everything else that we, from, deep state and these bureaucratic agencies that are apparently accountable to no one. I mean, if they can abuse a FISA court and get individuals to wiretap innocent people without even so much as holding a hearing on the evidence presented, I mean, it's not beyond it's not far to expect that this is the way that they would treat someone who, and Roger, I have to say, I'm disappointed that you live in Florida, which has a great gun laws in that state, and you don't own a single firearm.
Well, there's a reason for that, because you cannot have a medical marijuana card and also own a firearm under our state law. Because I do have glaucoma, because I had a detached retina from boxing, I might add, and therefore I do have a medicinal marijuana card. I'm not allowed to own a firearm. That's being challenged, but at the moment that's the law, and I therefore do not have a gun.
There you go. There you go. So this, I mean, ultimately, when I read the indictment and I read the, all of the charges that they were throwing your way, the process charges, et cetera, tampering with a witness, if the Trump campaign had any connections to WikiLeaks, if they had any connections to Julian Assange, as MSNBC and CNN and Washington Post and all of these other legacy media entities have intimated for so long, why would they come to you to ask you a question about something that they apparently already had established with that entity?
Look, I'm not going to get into the indictment because it's virtually impossible to rebut every point in the time we have. But here's the most troubling thing. If I'm so dangerous, Dana, why was there a CNN camera crew 25 feet from my front door to film the whole takedown? Yesterday, we proved definitively that a CNN producer sent my attorney, minutes after my arrest, a draft copy with meta tags proving CNN was tipped in advance by the special counsel. They deny it. They threaten to sue. I dare them. They're lying. Sarah Murray, the reporter, is a stone-cold liar, and I hope she preserves all of her emails and text messages, because the fact that I'm on the one hand considered dangerous, but CNN is allowed to film my arrest, that makes no sense. But it just underlines their whole narrative that they wanted to depict me as guilty before it even had a chance to go to trial. I pled not guilty to all those process charges. They are false. I'll prove it in court. But they want to. The Obama-appointed judge now wants to gag me, so I can't raise the money for my defense. I need people to go to StoneDefenseFund.com. StoneDefenseFund.com. Because by Friday, she most likely will prevent me from saying that, and they have unlimited taxpayer money to finance and a platoon of Ivy League prosecutors to prosecute me. I have to count on the American people to back me up.
And I think that's an important point to make as well, because they've done this to Carter Page. They've done this to Michael Flynn. They will, as you said, they have an unlimited supply of taxpayer dollars. And as a result, they can drag this out and destroy someone financially. Now, I want to touch again, because you brought up a very interesting point. And this is a question that has come up repeatedly as to how it was that CNN was outside of your residents when all of this went down, and CNN was saying, well, we saw some action with the grand jury, and so usually when that happens, that means this or that, which I don't know how much stock I put into that, but your attorney, Grant Smith, essentially the way that it is was that the arrest appeared to be leaked to CNN, maybe from somebody on Mueller's team. That's one of the things that's being alleged, and that they leaked the sealed indictment to that CNN reporter before your lawyer even saw it. Talk about this.
That is correct. The metadata proves that this was leaked by someone on the Special Counsel's task force. It's indisputable. CNN's double talk about pacer markings is nonsense. They've threatened to sue a number of conservative media outlets. I dare them. They dare them. No one's backing down. It's very clear. CNN knew that I had been arrested before my lawyer knew I had been arrested. And the producer on the ground in front of my house was Josh Campbell, former special assistant to FBI Director James Comey. Now, if I'm accused of lying to Congress, which I didn't do, what about James Comey or the psychopath John Brennan, the CIA director who lied repeatedly, or Andrew McCabe, or General James Clapper? He said we have no metadata collection
Cheryl
program.
Mills, Huma Abedin, all of these individuals that have
Cheryl Mills, and the evil queen herself, the foul-mouthed, short-tempered, self-important, self-focused kleptocrat Hillary Clinton, who believes in nothing other than lining her pockets. Why hasn't she been accused of not only destruction of evidence, but lying under oath? No, there are, as you know, Dana, there are two systems of justice, one for Republicans who support Donald Trump and another for the elite class of leftists who just refuse to accept the results of a democratic election that they lost.
And that's what it is all coming down to. In our time that we have here, I have one more question for you. And I was looking at some of this, the process charges, and then they were trying to get into the witness tampering. It was alleged, and I know you're a huge dog person. I am a ridiculous dog person. People make fun of me. My dogs have toy boxes, and they have their own tents. That one of the individuals with whom they allege in this indictment that you were going to go after the guy's dog. And I had to ask you about that because it stuck out more so, because it seems so insane. And I had to ask you about this.
Yeah, well, he wasn't feeding his dog. And that's a minor problem because I suspect he was spending his money on other things. So he wasn't feeding his dog. And that was, again, decontextualized. I'm not going to get into the individual charges, but anyone can go to the Daily Caller and see that I have crusaded against inhumane scientific experiments on dogs and cats. And my two dogs are still traumatized by the FBI raid. For 3 days, they wouldn't come out from under the bed, and they couldn't stop shaking.
I was actually surprised that they came out unscathed with that, because I've read stories where, in some instances, dogs that bark or show aggression, they don't necessarily come out okay. So and I immediately thought of that when I was reading through all of this. Give the website again, if you would, that you might not be able to say. You said later this week. StoneDefenseFund.com. StoneDefenseFund.com. I was wearing a T-shirt that said Roger Stone did nothing wrong at the time of my arrest. If you want to get that, go to 1776.shop. That also benefits my legal defense fund, but StoneDefenseFund.com. Many thanks, Dana. Roger Stone, as always, it's been a while since we've spoken, and I'm glad that you're hanging in there, and I'm glad that your family is okay, and we'll continue to follow this. Roger Stone, thanks for joining us today. Thank you.